That night, the sky unfolded like an infinite mirror, reflecting countless shimmering stars, distant particles of light believed to contain the secrets of the universe. In the midst of that vast stillness stood a man, his gaze fixed upon the heavens, as if yearning to touch the infinite. He was an astronomer, one who had devoted his entire life to seeking answers among the constellations in the immense darkness of the night sky. Yet perhaps, throughout his lifelong journey, he had forgotten one thing, that the very earth beneath his feet was also waiting to be seen. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The light we search for is not somewhere distant. It hides within the shadow of our own soul. The Astronomer is not merely the story of a man who watches the stars. It is a symbol of every human being's inner pilgrimage. When we become too absorbed in the world outside, we lose connection with the world within. And sometimes, only when we stumble, do we realize that the true light has never left us. Part 1. The Invitation to Stillness. Night descends softly, like the breath of the universe. Across the vast expanse, the sky stretches endlessly, sprinkled with stars that shimmer like thousands of tiny candles burning quietly in the dark. The narrator begins to speak slowly, as if afraid to break the fragile stillness of the night. Imagine you are lying beneath a sky full of stars. There is nothing left but your breath and the silence of the universe. A gentle invitation, yet profound. An invitation to stillness. Not the outer stillness of silence, but the stillness within, where the waves of thought gradually calm, and one begins to hear the true voice of the soul. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. When one looks outward, one dreams of the world, of what could be. But when one turns inward, one begins to awaken." And tonight, beneath this star-filled sky, the narrator's invitation becomes a doorway home. You might imagine yourself lying in a meadow, or perhaps in a small garden behind your house. Nothing rushes you. There are no cars, no ticking clocks. Only the breeze moving softly through the air, carrying the scent of earth and grass. As you breathe in, the cool night air seeps gently into every cell of your being. As you breathe out, all weariness and worry seem to dissolve. Above you, the sky moves in silence. Constellations and galaxies turning slowly, like the wordless music of time. In that moment, you begin to realize the universe is vast, and your daily burdens are so small. Jung once wrote, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, but only outgrown. The problems of life are not meant to be solved, but transcended. When the heart expands, what once felt heavy becomes light, like dust from a dying star." The narrator's voice whispers that each of us has a place in the cosmos, no matter how small. Perhaps peace does not come from finding some grand meaning, but from accepting that we are a small yet perfect part of the whole. Our very existence, a single breath, a single heartbeat, already holds significance because it contributes to the eternal rhythm of life itself. It is a strange and tender feeling, like realizing that you are both a grain of sand and the entire universe. In the faint starlight, you see everything, your fears, dreams, and wounds, as parts of a greater tapestry, a flowing current you no longer need to control. Stillness begins to seep into you like water filling every empty space within. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." Humans often do everything to escape themselves, chasing work, fame, love, distractions, anything to avoid listening to the emptiness inside. But in the stillness that the narrator creates, there's nowhere left to hide. You are alone with yourself, and this time, that is no longer frightening. The sky remains calm, the stars still shine, indifferent to anyone's joy or sorrow. And in that silence, you begin to feel something deep, a sense of connection. The boundary between you and the world, between inside and outside, between dream and reality, begins to dissolve. Perhaps this is what Jung meant by the stillness of the soul's depths, where the spirit no longer trembles, but breathes in rhythm with the universe. The narrator continues, his voice low and soothing like a lullaby. As you gaze into the vastness of the universe, let the peace of that moment envelop you. And you understand that this invitation is not merely for relaxation. It is a remembrance, a reminder that deep down, you are never separate from the world. You are part of it, and it breathes with you. As your eyes slowly close, you are no longer just listening to a story. You are living inside it. The stars above are like the lights of consciousness, distant yet familiar. The surrounding darkness is the image of the unconscious, vast, mysterious, and full of power. And in this stillness, the two become one. This is the true invitation of the beginning, a call to return to the essence of being, to what Jung called the self, the deepest center of the soul. Here, you are no longer the seeker of meaning. You are the meaning itself. And when you listen long enough, you realize that the starry sky above also lies within you. In stillness, there is nothing to achieve, nothing to prove. Only presence, only breath. And in that sacred moment, you're not merely listening to the universe. You're listening to your own soul. 2. The astronomer's obsession. Long ago, in a small seaside village in Greece, where green mountains embraced the ocean and the night sky spread like a black silk cloth, woven with starlight, there lived a man quietly in a white house perched upon a hill. People called him the Astronomer. He was neither wealthy nor surrounded by friends. He cared little for conversations in the village square. His whole world was contained within the night sky, the place where stars shimmered and constellations turned endlessly in their celestial dance. When the village still slept, he would rise, drape a thin cloak over his shoulders, take up his old telescope, and step outside. The sea breeze whispered through his silver hair, and above him, countless points of light seemed to call his name. He looked at them with the passion of a lover, as if his entire life existed in that single moment when starlight touched the depths of his eyes. Night after night, he sat alone in the darkness, recording every movement of the stars. He measured the distances between beams of light, traced the paths of wandering planets, and felt as though he were touching the very secrets of the universe. Yet the more he understood, the further he drifted from humanity. Old friends invited him for wine. He refused. Family came to visit. He did not open the door. To him, this world, with its meals, its mundane conversations, its small joys, no longer held any mystery. Only the sky was worthy of his devotion. Carl Jung once said, "Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol or morphine or idealism. Every obsession is a chain, no matter whether it bears the name of idealism or intellect." And the astronomer, in what seemed to be noble passion, was slowly descending into a kind of spiritual addiction. He did not know that among the light of the stars, the darkness within him was also growing. The darkness of isolation, of subtle pride, and of the quiet fear of looking down at the earth beneath him. Sometimes, in rare moments of weariness, he would ask himself, "Is there anyone out there looking up at the sky like I am?" But the question soon dissolved, for within him, the voice of knowledge drowned out all other sounds. Jung once wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "Science is not indeed a perfect instrument. It deals with measurable quantities, while the soul has its own peculiar values." He had forgotten that not everything precious can be measured. Not all light comes from the sky. When the night ended, he returned to his small home, exhausted but content. He recorded his observations with neat handwriting. Each page to him was a map leading toward truth, proof that he was still alive, even if, in that world, No one else journeyed beside him. Sometimes he would hear children laughing in the alley, women washing vegetables by the well, or smell the faint aroma of freshly baked bread drifting through the window. But those sounds and scents no longer touched him. They belonged to another world, the world of human beings. He, however, belonged to the stars. Yet perhaps, deep within, something still stirred, a loneliness he could not name. Amid the countless lights of the universe, he still felt an emptiness, as if part of his soul had been left behind somewhere on the earth. Jung once said, "When the conscious mind is blown up by the power of an archetype, the individual identifies with it and becomes possessed." The astronomer had been possessed by the very sacred image he pursued. He believed he was seeking truth, but in reality, he was lost within the labyrinth of his own ego. The further he looked outward, the more he lost the path home. During long nights on the hilltop, he began to speak to the stars. He asked them about the meaning of existence, of time, of the soul. But the stars only shone in silence. That silence both enchanted and wounded him. He began to believe that the answer lay farther, higher, in realms where human eyes had never reached. And so he kept looking up, kept searching, kept drifting away. But as Jung once reminded, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. Every step toward awareness must be paid for with suffering. The price of knowledge is solitude. The price of light is the loss of darkness, the very place where the soul resides. The astronomer did not realize that he was moving against the natural rhythm of human existence. Instead of uniting heaven and earth, reason and feeling, he chose to live in only one half. And so the nights grew longer and colder. At times when he looked up, the stars blurred through his tears, something he thought he had long forgotten how to shed. Perhaps somewhere deep inside, his soul was still calling him home, but he could not yet hear it. For as long as he was intoxicated by the light of knowledge, he was not still enough to notice the darkness whispering, "Come back." If Carl Jung had stood beside him, he might have said softly, "You're looking to the heavens to find yourself, but the map you seek lies within your own heart." For Jung understood that the stars above are merely reflections of the universe within. When we lose connection with the world, we lose ourselves. Thus, the story of the astronomer is not merely the tragedy of one man, but the symbol of humankind itself, of those who spend their lives seeking meaning outside while forgetting that their own souls long to be heard. And in the distant light of the universe, that echo still resounds. A gentle reminder that to truly see the sky, one must stand firmly upon the earth. Only then can the light from above truly shine within the heart. 3. A life of solitude. As the years passed, the villagers rarely saw the astronomer wandering through the small fishing town by the sea. He seldom left the white house that stood halfway up the hill, its windows always half closed, opening only when night descended. By day, when sunlight gilded every rooftop and the voices of labor echoed across the coast, he sank into deep sleep, as though hiding from the world. But when darkness fell, when the village drifted into slumber, that was when he truly began to live. In his small room, a dim oil lamp cast its faint light upon the walls, illuminating maps of the stars scattered across the table. He sat there alone, eyes lifted toward the open window, where thousands of stars shone down. To him, the night sky was the only friend that still listened. Each star was a soul, each constellation an untold story. He wrote carefully, his handwriting small and even, as if afraid that the sound of the universe might slip through his fingers. The higher he looked, the deeper he withdrew from the earth. The gatherings in the square, the shared meals, the laughter of children, all became distant echoes. Sometimes neighbors called to him over the fence, but he merely nodded, his gaze still fixed on the sky. People said he was bewitched by the stars, that he had forgotten how to live. But within him, it was not forgetfulness, it was choice. He felt he had been born to look upward, not to dwell among the fleeting and the small. And yet the stillness he once loved gradually became an invisible cage. In the vast darkness, amid infinite silence, something hollow crept into his heart. The wind from the sea still blew, the waves still broke against the shore, yet everything felt unbearably far. He suddenly realized he could hear nothing anymore, except the scratching of his pen and the rhythm of his own heartbeat. Carl Jung once wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "Loneliness does not come from having no people about one, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself. Loneliness does not arise from being alone, but from being unable to share what truly matters." The astronomer understood this better than anyone. He had not been abandoned. He had chosen to walk away from the embrace of the world. He lived among humankind, but no longer belonged to it. At first, he thought solitude was freedom. But as night followed night, he began to see that freedom was not the same as happiness. In the stillest moments, when the sky overflowed with stars, he felt a vast emptiness growing within. It seemed that the higher he reached, the further he drifted from something essential. A kind of light not found in the stars, but in the human heart. Jung once wrote, "The more one turns inward, the more one is absorbed by the unconscious, and the more isolated one becomes. The deeper one turns inward without balance, the more one is swallowed by the unconscious." And the astronomer, though gazing upward into the heavens, was in truth descending into another kind of darkness, the darkness of an unheard soul. Inside the silent room, his notes multiplied, yet his heart grew emptier. He had recorded thousands of stars, but had no one left to tell about them. Each new discovery brought no joy, for there was no one to share it with. The greater his knowledge became, the narrower his world grew. Sometimes he stood by the window, gazing down at the sleeping village. A flickering lamp glowed in a house at the foot of the hill. Someone still awake, preparing for tomorrow. That small light stirred something strange within him, a longing. He wasn't sure if he missed people, or missed the part of himself that once knew how to smile. Carl Jung once reminded us, "Man cannot stand a meaningless life. Human beings cannot bear a life devoid of meaning." And yet, paradoxically, in his pursuit of meaning among the stars, his life had grown empty. For meaning does not reside in distant realms. It lives within each moment we inhabit, each bond we nurture, each glance we exchange. The astronomer had forgotten this. He saw truth in the cosmos, unaware that truth had always existed within each breath of life itself. At times he dreamed of a child standing by the window, looking up at him with a smile. The child's face was familiar, bright-eyed, smudged with dust, yet radiant with innocence. He realized it was himself as a boy, the one who once stargazed with his father and believed that every celestial body had a soul. But upon waking, the dream dissolved like mist, leaving behind a quiet ache of loss. In memories, dreams, reflections, Jung wrote, "In each of us there is another whom we do not know. Within each of us lives another self, a silent soul we so often forget." The astronomer had left that self behind in the past, the self that could love, connect, and listen to life. And so, though surrounded by countless stars, his inner sky remained empty. One night, when the wind blew harder than usual, he stepped outside and stood upon the hillside. The sky blazed brilliantly above, but instead of peace, it brought him desolation. He felt as though the stars were looking down on him, silent, distant, mirroring his own solitude. In that moment, he understood that in seeking eternity, he had lost what was most real, humanity itself. If Carl Jung had been there, perhaps he would have said to the astronomer, "You do not need to reach the heavens to find your soul. It lives within every breath, every human gaze, every moment you stop and feel." But the astronomer could not hear these words. He heard only the wind and the sea, two distant heartbeats of the cosmos and mankind, pulsing together yet never meeting. That night, he sat alone once more. The light from his small house spilled softly through the window, trembling in the darkness. Outside, the sky stretched infinite, silent and heartbreakingly beautiful. He gazed for a long while, then whispered through his breath, "I have spent my whole life searching for light, and forgot it once lived within me." And in that very moment, amid the deepest solitude, something within him stirred, like a tiny star falling into the earth, warming as it descended, and quietly fading away. 4. The Fall and the Awakening. That night, the Greek sky was so still that one could almost hear the breath of the wind. The stars were scattered like grains of silver salt upon an immense black silk, shimmering, pure, and distant. Once again, the astronomer wandered along the familiar hillside, notebook in hand, eyes lifted endlessly upward. To him, the sky was everything. His friend, his confidant, his promise of a truth beyond human reach. He walked as though the earth beneath him did not exist, as though lifting his head was enough to touch the realm of the divine. But in a moment of carelessness, his foot caught on a root jutting out of the path, and his body fell forward. The soft sound of his fall echoed through the night. Sand, soil, and dust clung to his robe, dimming the purity of the light he had so relentlessly pursued. He laughed quietly, half embarrassed, half aching. That small, accidental fall was the first time in many years that he truly looked down. Beneath his hands, the earth was cold and damp, smelling faintly of wild grass and stone. It was the scent of the real world, the one he had long forgotten. A neighbor, hearing the noise, rushed over with a lantern. Helping the astronomer up, he asked with concern, "Good heavens, are you all right?" The astronomer brushed the dirt from his robe and smiled awkwardly. "I'm fine," he said. "I just wasn't watching my step." The neighbor shook his head and chuckled softly. "You're always looking up at the sky," he said. "Why not try looking at what's right in front of you?" The words were light as air, yet pierced him like an arrow. The astronomer stood still, watching the glow of the lantern fade behind the trees. That simple question lingered in his mind, echoing again and again. A call from some deep place he could no longer ignore. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And perhaps that fall was the astronomer's first pain of awakening, when he collided not only with the ground, but with the darkness he had long avoided. He realized that while he had spent his life looking upward, the world beneath his feet had continued to live, to breathe, to sing its quiet song of existence. Slowly, he sat down and stared at his mud-stained hands. The ground was hard, cold, rough, and yet startlingly real. A faint trembling stirred in his heart, not from pain, but from the birth of an awareness. That small sensation carried the weight of something profound, as if he had just recovered a fragment of his forgotten soul. Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." The astronomer had spent his life looking outside, at the stars, at the vastness beyond, yet never once looked within. Thus, the fall became a turning point, forcing him to change the direction of his gaze. In the darkness of night, amid the dust and wild grass, he began to understand that the light he sought was not distant but right here, in this awakening. It was the moment he stopped viewing the sky as a symbol of knowledge and began to see it as a mirror reflecting the soul. As he stood up, a gentle breeze brushed through his hair, carrying the cool fragrance of night. Everything around him was unchanged: the sky, the hill, the stars. Yet something within him had shifted. He became aware of his breath, his stance, his aliveness, things he had never truly felt before. Perhaps this was what Jung called the confrontation with the self, the moment when the proud ego bows before the simplest truth. One cannot touch the heavens without remembering the earth. That night, when he returned home, he did not open his notebook as usual. He simply sat beside the oil lamp, gazing out the window. Outside, the stars still sparkled, but in his eyes, They now seemed softer, kinder, closer. They were no longer objects to conquer, but companions smiling as if they had been waiting for him to understand this all along. Carl Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Until we bring our unconscious into awareness, it will rule our lives, and we will call it destiny." That fall, seemingly accidental, was in truth his soul's way of speaking. For the unconscious, in its own mysterious way, always seeks to guide us back to the rightful path. The path of balance between sky and earth, between light and shadow. As night waned, he exhaled softly. A cool breeze slipped through the window and extinguished the lamp. In the darkness, he remained seated, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. There was no emptiness now, only a tender stillness. He understood that sometimes, to see clearly, we must first stumble. To understand light, we must walk through darkness. If Carl Jung had been there, he might have said to the astronomer, "You did not fall to fail, but to remember what you had forgotten. The true light is not in the sky, but in the heart of one who dares to look within." In that night, beneath the radiant stars, a man awakened. No longer the one obsessed with knowledge, he became simply human again. Small, fragile, but alive. And when he lifted his gaze once more, the stars shone brighter than ever. Not because they had changed, but because, for the first time, he truly saw them. 5. The first morning in years. The first light of dawn gently touched the dust-covered window. A thin ray of gold slipped through the curtain, falling upon the table, glimmering across pages filled with symbols of the stars. The astronomer slowly opened his eyes. It had been a very long time since he had seen sunlight. For years, he had lived only in the night, when the world slept, and he gazed endlessly at distant constellations. But this morning, something had changed. The fall from the previous night and the neighbor's quiet words still echoed in his mind like a tender, persistent refrain. Why do you only look up at the sky and never see what's right before your eyes? He sat up. His eyes ached, unaccustomed to the brightness of morning. Everything felt unfamiliar. The warm sunlight, the bird song, the distant laughter carried by the wind. Suddenly, he realized his village too had its own rhythm, its own breath, its own quiet life that he had long overlooked. A soft morning breeze drifted through the open window, carrying with it the scent of freshly baked bread, sea salt, and grass still heavy with dew. The feeling pierced his heart gently, as if a long, locked door inside him had just opened. Carl Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Perhaps the greatest privilege of life is to return to one's true self, to feel again, to live again, to love again." And on that morning, the astronomer began that journey of return, quietly and simply. He stepped outside. The first rays of sunlight fell softly across his shoulders, tinting his silver hair with a golden warmth. The village path was still wet with dew, glimmering faintly in the light. In the courtyard, a few neighbors were gathered around an old wooden table, the air filled with the warmth of coffee and the fragrance of bread. They looked up in surprise, astonished to see him, the man who had lived by night for so many years, standing there in the light of morning. "Good morning, my friend," one of them called out cheerfully. "It's been ages since we've seen you up this early. Come, have a cup of coffee with us. It'll warm you right up." He hesitated for a moment, then smiled and sat down. Before him were familiar faces he had long forgotten. The elderly woman slicing bread, her grandchild giggling beside her, and the neighbor, the same man who had helped him the night before, pouring coffee with kind eyes. A thin wisp of steam rose from the clay cup, rich and fragrant. He breathed it in deeply. Something about that scent made his throat tighten. The scent of life, of humanity, of morning. As he took the first sip, the bitterness spread across his tongue, then softened into sweetness. It was a strange, beautiful sensation. It had been so long since something so simple could move him so deeply. The bread was still warm in his hands, crisp on the outside, soft inside. They talked about the weather, the morning's catch, the child about to start school. Nothing grand, nothing extraordinary, yet everything felt alive. Each word, each burst of laughter filled him with a sense of belonging he thought he had lost. Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." The meeting of souls is a chemical reaction, and that morning, as he sat among these ordinary people, the astronomer's soul was quietly being transformed. He realized that while he had sought eternity among the stars, he had overlooked the eternal things already present in life: the gaze, the smile, the warmth of human connection. When the neighbor laughed, when the child ran around the table, he suddenly saw this was the true sky, not above, but here, before his eyes. A woman pushed a plate of bread toward him. "Try this," she said. "I baked it fresh this morning." He took a piece, bit gently. The taste of butter and honey melted together. Tender, honest, real. He smiled. For the first time in so long, he felt truly alive. The early sunlight poured over the faces around him, making them radiant. He looked around and realized that these simple things, breakfast, laughter, friendship, were the treasures no amount of knowledge could bring. Jung once said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power. Where love reigns, there's no hunger for domination." Once, the astronomer had believed that strength lay in knowledge, in reaching what others could not. But this morning, he understood. True strength lies in connection, in sitting with others and feeling one's heart grow warm. When breakfast ended, they invited him for a walk around the village. He followed, his feet treading softly upon the damp earth. He looked around, wildflowers blooming along the walls, moss-covered rooftops, the joyful laughter of children echoing through the air. Everything felt both familiar and new. He lifted his head toward the sky, this time not to search for constellations, but simply to feel the sunlight on his face. The light was no longer distant or mysterious, but warm and tender, the light of the present moment. Jung once wrote in Modern Man, In Search of a Soul, "Man needs difficulties. They are necessary for health. Human beings need difficulties, for they are essential to our wholeness." The fall from the night before had been his pain, but also his medicine. Without it, he would never have discovered how a simple morning could heal a weary soul. When he returned to his small home, the sun had risen high. The once cold room was now filled with light. He opened the window, letting in the sea breeze and the lingering scent of bread. On the table lay his open notebook of stars. He gently closed it. The sky was still out there, but today there was no need to rush. He had found something far more precious, the human heart. If Carl Jung had been there, he might have said, "You have found the dawn, not of the world, but of your own soul." For true light does not always come from distant stars, but from the smiles shared around a humble morning table. And so, after many years of living in darkness, the astronomer finally saw his first light again. Not the light meant to observe, but the light meant to live by. 6. Rediscovering the earth beneath his feet. That morning, as the sun rose gently over the mountains, the astronomer stepped out of his house. The early light fell softly upon his shoulders, tinting his worn cloak with a golden hue. He carried no notebook, no telescope. In his hands were only his bare palms, trembling slightly in the cool morning breeze. But within him, something new was awakening. He walked along the dirt road that curved around the village, each step sinking into damp sand still touched by dew. With every movement, he could feel the earth beneath his feet, its warmth, its softness, its subtle vibration. The sensation was strange, familiar, yet miraculous, something he had long forgotten. For years, He had lived among the stars, a world distant, cold, and silent. Now, for the first time, he realized that the earth too had a voice, a quiet language that only those willing to listen could understand. The wind carried with it the scent of freshly baked bread from the little bakery at the edge of the village. He stopped and inhaled deeply. The aroma of butter, flour, and honey mingled and drifted through the warm air. Such a simple fragrance, yet it made his heart tremble as if it had brushed against a forgotten memory. Then came the scent of roasted coffee, rich, bitter, and sweet, from the house across the road, where a woman sat savoring her morning cup. Suddenly, the astronomer felt his heart grow lighter, as if the world, once divided in his mind between heaven and earth, was now whole again. Carl Jung once wrote, in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. No tree can reach heaven if its roots do not first touch the depths of the earth." That truth now felt as though it had been written for him. He had once yearned only for the light of the sky, forgetting that he was still a living tree, one that needed roots, soil, and the warmth of the world to survive. Walking down the village road, he understood this, not with his intellect, but with his whole body and his soul. The villagers were beginning their day. A fisherman laughed loudly as he lifted a net left to dry overnight. A woman arranged loaves of bread into a basket. Children ran through the lanes with wildflowers in their hands. He passed by, nodding and greeting, and they smiled back. So simple, and yet warmer than any flame he had ever seen among the stars. Once, he had believed knowledge was the only light worth pursuing. Now, he understood that the light of life, born of kindness and quiet joy, was the one that truly awakened the soul. He bent down and picked up a fallen leaf by the roadside. The morning sun shone through it, revealing veins as delicate as a miniature map of the cosmos. He laughed softly, realizing that even this tiny leaf was telling the story of heaven and earth. The stars, he thought, were not only above. They existed in every grain of dust, every drop of dew, every leaf beneath his feet. Jung once said, in The Undiscovered Self, "Man cannot stand a meaningless life. Human beings cannot endure a life without meaning." The astronomer had once believed meaning existed only in grand things, in the heavens, in truth, in numbers. But as his feet touched the soil, as his nose caught the scent of bread and coffee, he understood. Meaning was not distant. It was here, in every breath, in every step, in living fully among the ordinary moments of the world. An elderly woman saw him pause and called out, "Hey there, fresh bread. Would you like to try one?" He smiled and walked toward her. She handed him a loaf still warm from the oven, and he accepted it with both hands. The bread was soft, the crust slightly crisp, rich with aroma. He bit into it. Butter melted on his tongue, blending with the gentle sweetness of honey, a flavor he had never found in the universe. Yet within it lay all the truth of life. He looked up at the woman's smile, kind, simple, and radiant with strength. It was the smile of the earth itself, of those who live close to the soil, to whom he had once turned his back. Carl Jung once said, "The sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. The purpose of life is to kindle a light within the darkness of existence." The astronomer had once tried to ignite that light among distant stars, but now he understood that it was here, in sunlight touching the leaves, in the scent of morning coffee, in the smile of a stranger. He kept walking slowly, carefully, as if afraid to shatter the fragile beauty of the moment. Each step was a quiet prayer of gratitude to the earth. The very thing he once considered ordinary, yet now realized was the foundation of all that is sacred. Under the morning light, he saw his footprints pressed into the soft ground. They would soon fade, but the feeling of touching the earth, of truly belonging to the world, would remain within him forever. If Carl Jung had been there, He might have said, "You once longed to reach the heavens, but it's only when you learn to walk the earth that you truly learn to fly." For the truth is this: only when a person learns to bow down can they touch the highest part of themselves. The astronomer stopped by a small stream at the edge of the village. The clear water reflected the blue sky above. In its surface, he saw his own reflection. A man who had once been lost among the infinite, now smiling upon the living earth. He knelt and dipped his hand into the cool water. In that moment, his heart grew still. There was no longer any division between heaven and earth, between reason and emotion, between observer and world. There was only one thing left: presence. And in that stillness, he knew. At last, he had come home. 7. The taste of life. That noon, sunlight spread softly across the narrow village road. The air carried the scent of the sea and the sweetness of ripe oranges from the distant groves. The astronomer walked slowly, his eyes still lifted toward the drifting white clouds. But this time, not to search for meaning, only to feel. Each step seemed to merge with the rhythm of life around him, voices calling to one another, the creak of wooden wheels rolling along the road, and the bright laughter of children playing near the village well. He stopped before a small fruit stall at the market's corner. The vendor, an elderly woman with silver hair tied neatly into a bun, was arranging golden oranges into a wicker basket. Seeing him, she smiled. "Good day, my friend. Out for a walk today? You look different, like someone just awakened from a long dream." He smiled faintly. "Perhaps you're right," he said. "I've just learned to see the world again, through the same eyes, but with a new heart." The woman chuckled and poured a golden liquid into a glass, freshly squeezed orange juice, cool and fragrant. She handed it to him and said, "Drink. This comes from the earth, not your sky." He accepted the glass, gazing into the light reflected within it. Golden as sunlight, clear as honey, shimmering as though it held the essence of summer itself. He took a sip, and instantly the flavor flooded through him, sweet and bright, tangy and alive. He closed his eyes, feeling the cool liquid glide down his throat, leaving a lingering sweetness upon his tongue. In that moment, he smiled, a smile both tender and bewildered. "How strange," he murmured softly. "All my life I looked to the heavens for light, never realizing that the earth could shine just as brightly." The woman nodded, her eyes glinting with quiet understanding. "Yes," she said. "The stars are beautiful, but you can't drink them." Her words struck him still. "You can't drink the stars." The phrase echoed in his mind like a small bell striking deep within his soul. He looked down at the glass in his hands. Sunlight passed through the glass, illuminating the liquid within until it gleamed like a constellation in his palm. But unlike the distant stars above, this light could be felt. It touched his lips, flowed through his body, entered his blood. It was alive. Carl Jung once wrote in The Undiscovered Self, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. Wholeness is not found by separating the soul from the body, but by uniting what seems to be opposites." And in that moment, the astronomer understood. For years, he had lived as half a being, the half of intellect, of reason, of distant light. He had forgotten the other half, the half of sensation, of taste, of living presence. He took another sip, deeper this time. The cool juice spread through him like a current of life, awakening something long dormant. Every cell in his body seemed to stir, as if remembering what it meant to live. It was a strange and sacred feeling, as though he were drinking life itself. Jung once said, "The body is not merely a container for the mind, it is the psyche itself, expressed in another form. The body is not just the vessel of the soul, it is the soul expressed through matter." And as the astronomer tasted the sweetness of the orange, he was listening to his soul speak through his senses, something he had never done before. He looked around the marketplace. Everything was vibrant, alive, vendors calling out, the scent of ripe fruit mingling with fresh bread, drops of sunlight glinting on the hair of children racing past. A simple scene, yet it pulsed with such vitality that his heart trembled. For years, he had searched for the universe in the distance, never realizing that an entire cosmos had always existed here. In every breath, every drop of water, every smile. The woman looked at him and said softly, "See, every orange, every drop of this juice was made by the sun, the rain, the wind, and the earth. The sky you love is right here, woven into life itself." He stood silent. Her words were a revelation. Everything he had once separated, heaven and earth, spirit and matter, knowledge and feeling, were never apart. It was humanity's limited vision that divided them. Carl Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." The encounter with this fruit seller, a simple woman in a village market, was that very reaction. It did not ignite flames, but it lit a gentle light within him. He set the glass down, looked at her, and smiled. "Thank you," he said. "I've spent my life studying the light of the stars, but never imagined that light could be tasted." She laughed, her smile warm as the noonday sun. "Well then," she said, "today you've truly seen it, in its sweetest form." Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." Humans will do anything to avoid meeting their own soul. The astronomer had once been that way, chasing the external to escape the internal. But through a single glass of orange juice, he had begun to look inward, not with the mind, but with the senses, with life itself. As he continued down the road, the sun rose higher, shining through the rows of orange trees, turning each fruit into a tiny golden sun. He looked up and smiled, not with the pride of knowledge, but with the wonder of a child who has just discovered something simple and miraculous, that to touch the sky, one sometimes needs only to taste a drop from the earth. If Carl Jung had been there, he might have said, "You have learned that not all light comes from above. Even a drop of orange can hold the sun." And so, beneath the midday light, in the scent of wind and citrus, the astronomer walked on. The sweetness of the juice lingered on his lips, and within his heart, for the first time after many years of solitude, he felt something profoundly simple and true. To live, truly live. 8. The Garden of Aphrodite. That afternoon, the sky was covered with a layer of soft golden sunlight, warm yet gentle. After lunch, the villagers invited the astronomer for a walk. "Today," they said, "we'll take you to the most beautiful place in our village, a place where every flower tells a story, and the wind sings of the things humanity has forgotten." They led him to a garden on the hillside, a place the villagers poetically called the Garden of Aphrodite. As the wooden gate creaked open, a wave of fragrance greeted them. The scent of lavender and roses mingled with the smell of damp grass and sunlight resting on the leaves. The astronomer stopped in his tracks. He had crossed hundreds of hills to observe the heavens, yet never once paused to truly see the earth so closely. At his feet, flowers swayed in the breeze, petals delicate as breath, their colors vivid as fallen stars from paradise. A young woman, the keeper of the garden, stepped forward to greet him. Her voice was light and clear as a stream. "Welcome, astronomer. Here, we do not look up to find beauty. We look down, because sometimes the sky blooms right beneath our feet." Her words struck him into silence. He looked around. Deep red roses, white daisies, blue irises, and fields of purple lavender stretching like a fragrant river. Each petal trembled softly, as if the stars themselves were breathing. He knelt and gently touched a rose, its surface soft, warm, and alive like human skin. Its fragrance seeped into his breath, tender and intoxicating. The girl smiled, pointing toward the rose bushes near the gate. They say the goddess Aphrodite created these flowers from her own blood and tears. That is why roses are both beautiful and painful. They symbolize love, something that exists only when one has touched both joy and suffering. The astronomer felt a strange stirring within. For years, he had lived without allowing himself to feel. He had fled from pain, kept his distance from people, fearing they might wound him. But now, surrounded by this garden, he understood. Beauty cannot exist without pain. Just as the sky cannot exist without darkness, one cannot find light without first passing through shadow. Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And the astronomer, who had spent a lifetime seeking the most distant light, suddenly realized that light was already blooming here, among these petals, in every breath, in every human feeling he had once denied. The girl led him deeper into the garden. There, clusters of violet flowers trembled in the afternoon sun, dew still glistening on their petals like tiny stars. Beneath a tree, a clear pond reflected a sky tinged with amber and gold. He bent down and saw his reflection. An old man, but in the eyes mirrored upon the water, something had softened, warmed, become more real. The girl spoke gently. "Every flower has its own soul, but it only blooms when we are truly present with it. If our minds wander elsewhere, we'll see only the color, not the scent." The astronomer was silent. Her words touched something deep within, the place where he had long buried his emotions, where he had locked his heart to live by intellect alone. Now, he felt everything around him come alive. The fragrance, the wind, the light, the sound of leaves and bees. He could feel life, not with his mind, but with his soul. Carl Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that afternoon, in Aphrodite's garden, the astronomer rediscovered his truest self. Not the seeker of knowledge, but a soul learning once again how to live, to feel, and to love. The sunlight slowly faded, bathing the garden in honey-colored glow. The white lilies bowed gently in the breeze, shimmering with the last light of day. He sat beside the pond, watching the petals fall softly onto the water, spinning, drifting, and sinking. A quiet peace filled his heart, not the excitement of discovery, but the stillness of return. Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." The encounter with the garden, with the girl, and with the earth itself was that very reaction. He had been transformed, no longer the observer standing apart, but one who had merged with the universe. When the villagers called him to return, he turned for one last look at the garden. The sunset bathed the flowers in a magical blend of gold, rose, and violet. He smiled and whispered to himself, "So the stars were here all along. I was simply too busy looking up to notice that the sky also blooms upon the earth." If Carl Jung had been there, he might have smiled and said, "You have found Aphrodite, not in myth, but in life itself." For love and beauty are not distant things. They blossom in every breath of a heart that learns to see. And so, as twilight descended, the astronomer quietly left the garden. He carried no flowers with him, for he now knew that true beauty cannot be plucked, only felt. The wind brushed softly through his hair, carrying with it the scent of evening blooms. For the first time in his life, he no longer wished to record or analyze. He only wished to live like a flower, opening in the light and quietly giving fragrance to the world. 9. The Temple of Apollo. That noon, sunlight spilled softly over the white stone paths, illuminating each roof tile and every patch of dry grass along the hillside. After leaving the garden of Aphrodite, the villagers invited the astronomer to visit a sacred place, the Temple of Apollo, the god of light and wisdom. The road leading up to the temple wound gently through the hill, paved with ancient stones. On both sides stood olive trees that had endured through centuries, their trunks gnarled and silver leaves shimmering under the sun. No one spoke. Only the sound of the wind and their measured footsteps echoed upon the earth. The astronomer walked among them, his heart as calm as still water. For so many years, he had sought knowledge in distant realms, in skies forever beyond his reach. Today, as he approached the temple, he felt as though he were walking not toward the heavens above, but toward the one within himself. When the great stone gates opened, the sight before him stole his breath. The temple gleamed in the midday light, 12 marble pillars rising tall and solemn, reflecting sunlight as if they had been born from the sun itself. The air was cool, tinged with the scent of sea salt and pine resin. He stepped slowly inside, his bare feet touching the smooth, cold stone. A shiver coursed through him, not of fear, but of reverence. Inside, the air was still, so silent he could hear his own breath. The villagers dispersed among the columns, admiring the carvings that told stories of Apollo, the god of light, of music, of truth. But the astronomer stood at the center of the great hall, where a beam of sunlight streamed through the dome above, falling directly upon him like a divine greeting. He closed his eyes. The world stopped moving. No voices, no wind, only silence. A deep, all-encompassing silence that wrapped around his soul. In that stillness, he felt himself dissolve into space. Every breath, every cell, every hair on his body seemed to rest in harmony, as though he had found the pulse of the universe within his own being. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. Carl Jung's words drifted through his mind, and for the first time he truly understood them. All his life, he had lived in the dream of the stars, in pursuit of the infinite, forgetting that true awakening lay in the quiet within his own heart. He sat down upon the marble steps, one hand resting lightly on the cool surface beneath him. For the first time in years, he felt no urge to write, to record, or to explain. He simply sat, and was. Sunlight streamed through the temple's narrow openings, illuminating tiny specks of dust, drifting slowly in the air, like countless planets circling an unseen sun. The sight made him smile softly. For the first time, he realized that the world did not need to be understood to be complete. It only needed to be seen. Carl Jung once wrote, "In all chaos there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." And now the astronomer saw all his years spent searching for order among the stars had blinded him to the deeper order within stillness itself, the hidden harmony of the soul. A breeze swept through the temple, weaving between the columns, carrying the sounds of the world outside. Sparrows singing, leaves brushing together, waves breaking in the distance. He opened his eyes and saw the sunlight flooding the entire space, and he understood. The universe was not only in the heavens. It lived in every breath, every gust of wind, every small vibration that life offered. Beside him, the villagers were smiling and whispering softly to one another, pointing at the carvings on the walls. But he remained seated, still and present, a man who had finally found himself. The silence within him was no longer emptiness. It had become a quiet hymn, a song of light and shadow, of gratitude and release. Jung once said, "Only that which is truly oneself has the power to heal. Only by returning to one's truest nature can one be healed." And there, within the temple, the astronomer began to heal, not through knowledge or theory, but through stillness. For a lifetime, he had tried to comprehend the cosmos with his mind. Now he was learning to listen with his soul. He rose slowly and walked toward the doorway. Beneath his feet, the marble floor was still cool, and with each step he felt as though he were awakening something ancient within his heart. He stopped before a tall column engraved with Greek words, "Gnothis Sauton," know thyself. He read the phrase silently, and emotion welled within him. He realized that all his searching among the stars, all his sleepless nights, had been a journey toward this one truth: to know himself. When he stepped outside, the afternoon light had turned golden. The rays struck the temple's columns, setting them ablaze in the glow of the sun. He turned back for one last look and smiled. He no longer wished to climb higher hills or chase new constellations. He had found another kind of star, one shining quietly within his soul. If Carl Jung had been there, he might have said, "You have discovered that true light is not found in the sky, but in the human ability to stand still and listen." The astronomer descended the temple steps, merging with the villagers returning to their homes. Beneath his feet, the stones grew warm in the sun, breathing with the pulse of the earth. He smiled, not because he had found something new, but because he had finally learned how to stop searching. And as he turned once more to see the Temple of Apollo gleaming on the hill, he understood. Sometimes the greatest journey is not to go far, but to stop and realize that the universe has never been outside of us. It has always lived within. 10. The shared meal. After leaving the Temple of Apollo, the sun had climbed to its zenith, spreading its golden light across the stone-paved road that led back to the heart of the small village. The midday air was clear and rich with the scent of life itself. Laughter echoed from the square, where villagers were setting long wooden tables beneath the shade of ancient trees. They invited the astronomer to join them for lunch. He hesitated for a moment. How many years had it been since he last shared a meal with anyone? He had grown accustomed to solitary nights, his dinners nothing more than crumbs of bread by the window as his eyes remained fixed on the sky. But today, as he sat at the long table, before him lay simple dishes: toasted bread, olives, cheese, honey, and dark red wine, humble yet full of life. The fragrance of freshly baked bread and herbs mingled with the breeze, and for the first time in years, his heart felt at ease. The villagers gathered around, chatting and laughing. An elderly man smiled and said, "You've spent your life studying the stars, but have you ever looked closely at a loaf of bread fresh from the oven?" The remark made everyone laugh, and even the astronomer couldn't help but smile. He picked up the warm loaf, broke it in half. Steam rose softly, carrying its sweet aroma. When he took a bite, the crisp crust melted into the sweetness of wheat, the salt of cheese, and the faint bitterness of olives. Each flavor unfolded on his tongue like a rediscovered memory, the taste of life itself. Carl Jung once wrote, "To be human is to become conscious of oneself." And in that moment, the astronomer became truly aware of his own existence, not as a seeker of knowledge, but as a living being, feeling every breath, every sweetness, and every saltiness that life offered. A woman poured him a glass of wine. The dark liquid shimmered under the light, glowing like the blood of the sun. He lifted the cup, swirled it gently, and took a sip. The wine was warm, rich, infused with the taste of the earth and ripe grapes. He sighed softly. This was the kind of light one could drink. The woman smiled. "See," she said, "everything around us is worth savoring. Not just the sky. The earth sings too." The astronomer nodded. He realized how long he had lived purely for the intellect, forgetting the simple joys of being human: to eat, to speak, to laugh with others. Jung once said in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. Loneliness does not come from the absence of people, but from the inability to share what matters most." The astronomer had once believed that knowledge was everything, that solitude was the price of wisdom. But now, hearing laughter and the clinking of dishes, he understood. Knowledge without connection is nothing but a cold emptiness. On the table, someone opened a basket of fruit: grapes, figs, and ripe oranges. A farmer drizzled golden honey over them. It flowed slowly across each slice, catching the sunlight like drops of liquid starlight. The astronomer tasted one. The sweetness spread across his tongue, sinking gently into his heart. He couldn't remember the last time he had savored something so whole. The honey wasn't merely sweet. It carried the taste of earth, of sunlight, of human kindness. Carl Jung once wrote, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity." Creation, he said, comes not from intellect, but from the playful instinct of the soul. And as laughter rippled through the air, the astronomer understood that life itself was the same, not something to be analyzed, but to be enjoyed. A young boy ran up to him, eyes sparkling, holding out a bunch of grapes. "Here, sir, these are sweet. Try one." The astronomer smiled gently and accepted them. He tasted the first grape. It burst softly in his mouth, sweet and slightly tart. He looked at the cluster in the sunlight, glimmering like tiny constellations, and said to the boy, "Do you know, little one, that even in a single grape the whole sky exists?" The boy laughed, thinking it a joke, but the astronomer meant every word. In that instant, he felt the universe resting in the palm of his hand. Alive, simple, and perfect. Jung once wrote in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. The shoe that fits one may wound another. There is no single formula for life." And the astronomer realized that perhaps his own formula was here, in shared meals, in laughter, in the quiet joy of belonging to others. When the meal ended, no one left immediately. They lingered, telling stories of harvests, of the sea, of love. Their laughter rose softly, a melody as ancient as the earth itself. The astronomer leaned back in his chair, watching sunlight filter through the branches above, each ray glimmering like 1,000 stars shining in the daylight. For the first time, he saw that the stars were not only in the sky, but here, within every person, within every small joy they shared. A gentle breeze passed, carrying with it the scent of wine, bread, and honey. He closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and felt a fullness, not just of the body, but of the soul. If Carl Jung had been there, he might have smiled and said, "You have understood that man does not live only to comprehend, but to feel, not only to gaze, but to share." As the villagers cleared the tables, the astronomer remained seated for a moment, watching the light shimmer across the wooden surface. Where hands had rested, crumbs remained, and drops of wine reflected the afternoon sun. He smiled, not the smile of discovery, but the smile of someone who had finally recovered a lost part of himself. The evening breeze settled softly. From afar, a bell rang, echoing through the warm air. He stood and walked back toward the village with the others, his heart light and calm. With each slow step, he realized he had learned something profound, that knowledge helps us understand the world, but love, joy, and a shared meal allow us to experience it. And so, beneath the fading light, he smiled, a gentle, quiet smile, as if he had just seen a new star rising, not in the sky, but within his own heart. 11. The sunset and the revelation. That evening, as sunlight stretched long over the stone-paved roads, the villagers invited the astronomer to climb the mountain behind the valley. "You have spent your whole life beneath the night sky," they said. "Tonight, watch the sky as the day fades." Their words drifted lightly like the wind, yet something within him stirred. How long had it been since he last cared about a sunset? To him, dusk had always seemed meaningless, that fleeting moment when the sun had not yet vanished and the stars had not yet appeared. But today, for reasons he could not explain, he wanted to go. The path up the mountain was soft with grass, fragrant with wildflowers. The villagers walked in a line, carrying baskets of food, wine, bread, and thick blankets for the hilltop. Children ran ahead, laughing in the golden light, while the adults talked softly, their voices mingling with the wind. The astronomer walked among them, his heart still and calm as a lake. He heard the sound of his own footsteps, the roll of small stones, the brush of grass against his cloak. Every sound carried the breath of life. a melody he had long forgotten how to hear. When they reached the summit, the sky had turned to gold. The sun was sinking low, spilling its honey-colored light across the mountain slopes, tinting each blade of grass and stone with red. The villagers spread their blankets, unpacked their food, and laughter filled the air. A farmer handed the astronomer a cup of wine and said, "You've seen thousands of stars, but have you ever truly watched how the sun takes its leave?" The astronomer took the cup and fell silent. He lifted his eyes to the sky. The sun was descending slowly, burning with an otherworldly brilliance. The colors unfolded one after another: gold, orange, crimson, then violet. The light softened, no longer fierce but tender, like a warm blanket wrapped around the earth. A breeze drifted through, carrying the scent of damp soil and wine. In that moment, something within him began to melt, a quiet awakening, gentle yet profound. Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection. There is no light without shadow, no wholeness without imperfection." And suddenly he understood. He had spent his life waiting for darkness so he could gaze at the stars, forgetting the beauty of light as it fades. He had chased eternity, but now it was impermanence that moved him to tears. The sun slowly sank beyond the horizon, as though whispering a farewell. Its final rays spread across the sea of clouds, then dissolved into quiet. Around him, the villagers laughed, passing baskets of food: toasted bread, dried fish, figs, and golden honey. Laughter mingled with the wind, with the gentle clinking of wine cups. The astronomer watched in silence, each face, each glance, each small gesture. And in them he saw another kind of light, not one born of the sky, but of humanity itself. A young woman sitting beside him poured more wine and smiled. "Do you often watch the sunset?" she asked. He shook his head. "No. I always waited for it to end so I could see the stars. I used to think that true light only appeared when night fell." She smiled softly. "Perhaps you're mistaken," she said. "Some lights can only be seen as they are about to fade." Her words silenced him. He looked up, and for the first time he truly looked. The sun was now just a thin line along the horizon, but in that stillness, he felt something vast unfold. It wasn't happening out there. It was happening within him, a part of himself. The part that had lived so long in the shadow of solitude was being touched by that dying light. Jung once wrote in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "The afternoon of life is just as full of meaning as the morning. Only its meaning and purpose are different. The afternoon of life," he said, "is as meaningful as the morning. Only its purpose changes." And perhaps this was the afternoon of the astronomer's own journey. The moment he realized that life was not only about discovery, but also about reflection. He lay back on the grass, gazing at the sky as it deepened into violet. The light faded, yet the world did not fall into darkness. It simply changed its hue, quieter, deeper, closer. He could hear the insects begin their evening song, the breath of the wind across the mountain, and he felt the rhythm of life continuing, even as the sun disappeared. Carl Jung once said, "We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. We cannot change what we do not accept." And that evening, the astronomer learned acceptance, that light must fade, that all things pass, that human beings cannot grasp eternity. They can only be present in the moment they are given. The villagers raised their cups, the red wine glimmering beneath the purple sky. The astronomer lifted his as well, saying nothing. The warmth spread through him, the tang of grapes, the salt of the sea breeze, the gentle bitterness of time. Each sip was a blessing, a communion. He looked around, at the bright faces, at the laughter carried by the wind, and realized he had spent his life searching for life among the stars, never noticing it had always been here, in every person, in every moment. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And now, beneath the fading sky, the astronomer felt himself, not as a conqueror of knowledge, but as a human being, one who could love, who could feel, who could look upon the world with gratitude. When the sun finally slipped away, the sky turned indigo, draping the mountain in soft violet light. Night began to fall, but strangely, he no longer felt the urge to lift his gaze in search of stars. He sat still, letting the darkness envelop him like a warm blanket, and he smiled. If Carl Jung had been there, he might have said, "You have learned that light does not exist only in eternity, but also in the fleeting moment. And sometimes, to truly see it, one must learn to watch it as it leaves." And so, on the windy mountaintop, the astronomer sat silently facing the west, where the last traces of light dissolved into the horizon. On his lips was a quiet smile, the smile of a man who had finally realized that he no longer needed the night to find the stars, for now he carried the entire sky within his own heart. 12. Unity of heaven and earth. Night descended after the radiant sunset, soft as a silk veil falling over the valley. The villagers remained atop the mountain, where the wind carried the scent of wild grass and freshly turned earth. After a feast filled with laughter, they lay down on blankets spread across the meadow, heads tilted toward the sky that was slowly awakening with countless stars. The astronomer sat quietly. He had seen the sky 1,000 times, through the eyes of intellect, through the mind of a seeker. But tonight it was different. The starlight no longer felt cold or distant, like the figures and diagrams in his notebooks. It was alive, tender, intimate, shimmering like the gaze of an old friend returned. He turned to the villagers lying beside him, smiled, and pointed upward. "Look," he said softly. "There. That's Orion the Hunter. And over there, Ursa Major, the Great Bear, guardian of the North." Everyone fell silent, eyes following his hand. The children held their breath, eyes wide as if witnessing magic. An old man nodded, the reflection of the stars glimmering in his eyes. The wind whispered through the grass, gentle and steady, weaving itself into the astronomer's voice. A voice that spoke not only of constellations, but of the human soul itself. Carl Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two worlds always produces something new." And tonight, two worlds, the sky and the earth, met within the heart of the astronomer. He was no longer the observer, standing outside the universe. He was part of it. He lay back on the grass, feeling the coolness of the earth seep through his thin clothes. The ground was soft, damp, and fragrant. The scent of soil mingled with the breeze, and suddenly he realized he had never truly lain on the earth before. For years, he had only walked upon it, coldly, distantly, as if the ground were merely a surface for his feet, not the home of his soul. Above him, the stars burned brighter. Their light poured not only across the heavens, but also down upon the smiling faces below. The astronomer watched the villagers as they pointed out the constellations he had named, and his heart grew warm. Never had the sky looked so beautiful. Not because it had changed, but because he was no longer looking at it alone. Jung once said in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries." Wholeness, he realized, was not found in separation but in union. And tonight he felt it. Heaven and earth, light and shadow, knowledge and emotion, all merging as one. For so long, he had lived as a divided being, half belonging to the stars, half left behind on earth. He had believed truth resided above, in the endless expanse of space, but now he understood. Light only finds meaning when it touches the ground, just as the human soul shines brightest when it has something, or someone, to reflect upon. A woman beside him whispered, "I've never seen the sky so close before." He smiled. "It's always been close," he replied. "We just never stopped long enough to notice." The night wind swept across the hill, cool and gentle. The sound of insects rose, the heartbeat of the earth. Everyone lay still, letting the music of the world flow through their breathing. The astronomer closed his eyes and listened. He heard the wind, the grass, his own heartbeat, and the steady rhythm of those around him. All of it blended into one, a serene symphony, the music of existence itself. Carl Jung once wrote in the Red Book, "The stars of the soul shine only when it is dark enough." And that night, darkness was no longer something to fear or to study. It was the embrace of the cosmos, the space where he finally found the true light. Not outside, but within. He opened his eyes again. The stars still sparkled, but they seemed transformed. They were no longer distant or foreign, but beacons for the soul. Each star was a breath of life, each shimmer a reminder that humanity too belongs to the universe, not through sight alone, but through the heart. Jung once said, "The body is merely the visibility of the soul." And now, the astronomer felt his own soul illuminated. His heart expanded, embracing both heaven and earth. He no longer felt the boundary between self and universe. Everything flowed together, like starlight reflected in water, like breath blending into wind. A profound stillness filled him, not joy, not sorrow, but peace. It was the quiet of one who has finally come home after a long journey. He lay motionless, his fingers brushing the grass, feeling the cool dew gather on his skin. All his worries, all his questions, all his lifelong searching, quietly dissolved. If Carl Jung had been there, he might have smiled and said, "You have wandered far in search of light, yet it was never apart from you. It has always been here, in your breath, in the earth, in the sky, within your soul." And so, beneath the star-filled sky, the astronomer slowly closed his eyes. He no longer stayed awake to watch the stars, for they were already within him. The wind whispered through the grass, a lullaby sung by the universe itself. He drifted into sleep, peaceful as a child returning home after a long dream. For the first time in his life, he did not dream of flying to the heavens, but of the heavens bending down to embrace him. Light and shadow merged. Earth and sky were no longer apart. In the silence of night, he had found what he had been searching for all his life: the union of heaven and earth, of universe and human, of knowledge and love. Above him, the stars still shone brightly, witnessing a soul made whole. And in the breath of the night, the universe whispered, "Welcome home."